At the same time, the U.S. Embassy in Nigeria has announced that Nigerians seeking non-immigrant visas to the United States will now only be getting single-entry 3-month permits. Now, that's effectively rolling back the 5-year multiple entry visas they previously were issued with. A Nigerian Foreign Ministry official says Nigeria has no such visa policy towards American citizens. In June, the Trump administration added Nigeria to a list of 36 countries that could face travel restrictions if they failed to address security and diplomatic concerns within 2 months. Nigerians have been reacting to the new visa restrictions.
I think our government should come up with something tangible to tell the U.S. government to at least have a rethink on this bill or on this kind of law they've passed. It's not really too good for we the young Nigerians coming up. We might have something doing abroad, something good doing abroad, and coming back doing just a one-time visa, coming back to the country do another one. Time constraining. It also involves money.
There is a positive advantage of that, because if you observe some of the things that we are supposed to at least maybe invest in our own nation here, most of our people, we do used to fly, go abroad, carry all our wealth, spend it here. With this restriction, it will make our leaders to focus their attention into our land.
Now, the U.S. mission in Nigeria says the reasons for cutting back on most non-immigrant visas to Nigerians have been, in their words, misunderstood by the public. In a statement posted on its account on X, formerly known as Twitter, the embassy clarified that the reduction in visa validity is not due, they say, to Nigeria's position on third country deportees or the adoption of e-visa policies or its ties to organizations like BRICS. The U.S. mission claims that the shortened validity period is part of a broader, ongoing worldwide review of how other countries utilize U.S. visas. Let's dig into a bit of analysis on this. Basil Abia is a policy analyst and a co-founder at Veriv Africa. He's joining us now live on the program. Basil, so let's start with the position, the argument being made here by the Americans. Speaking to the BBC and later, of course, saying the same thing on Twitter. They say there is no connection between the change in the visa policy and U.S. efforts to convince countries to take in third country deportees. Do you buy that argument?
I do not buy that argument, and I think it's important to note the information available right now. According to BBC, they spoke with the Liberian foreign minister on the back of that conversation on Wednesday with the 5 heads of states of Africa, heads of states of the countries, the select countries in Africa that spoke with Donald Trump. And according to him, no such conversation was made available. But however, if you remember, there are also informed agents who were in that particular or who are conversant with that particular conversation, and they highlighted that these requests were actually made, and you can collaborate that or corroborate that with what is happening in South Sudan with the current acceptance or receipt of these dangerous individuals from Laos and from Venezuela as well. There's also information from diplomatic sources here in Abuja, full confirmation that these pressures have actually been mounted on the Nigerian authorities over the last week. In spite of that, Yusuf Tugar went, of course, to national television, probably the most watched political conversation in Nigerian national television last night, Politics Today on Channels News, to push back and to elaborate. For most of us who are pundits and analysts, we are always circumspect of information that comes from Asorok, the staff, of course, of the Nigerian federal government. But when you speak with folks who are, conversant with the information, diplomatic sources being available, and then look at the patterns in the last 2 or 3 weeks with the African countries who have been in negotiation with Washington, D.C., I think it's very important to highlight that you should not buy the argument from the Americans. Rather, stick with the diplomatic sources in-house, because they're more accurate. They know exactly what's happening. And they're trained diplomats. They're not going to tell you or wind you in with propaganda words compared to what you're going to get, for instance, from foreign ministers, like we saw with the Liberian foreign minister. So I do not buy the argument, and there's enough evidence available for all to see.
Indeed, and just to provide our viewers with a bit of context on exactly what we're talking about with respect to South Sudan, 8 individuals were eventually deported to the country last month. There was a bit of a legal battle that were held briefly at a military base, Camp Limoni, I believe, in Djibouti. Only one of those migrants, however, was from South Sudan. The others are from Mexico, Cuba, Vietnam, Laos and Myanmar, all countries that are thousands of miles away from South Sudan. The Foreign Affairs Minister, Yusuf Tugai, also said that Nigeria and the United States are still negotiating a trade deal. But what is Nigeria looking for in any kind of agreement with the White House in this $10 billion relationship?
Yeah, actually, it's actually a $13 billion bilateral trade relationship. The data from Federal Ministry of Trade last year said for 2024, trade volume increased to over $13 billion. But we're looking at strengthening a few things. Obviously, there's also some private sector lobbying involved in that negotiations. As you know, the richest Nigerian in the world and biggest industrialist, Aliko Dangote, has commenced the exports of jet fuel to the American energy market, at least over 2 million barrels thus far, so far. So he's going to look out to lobby the Nigerian Foreign Affairs Ministry to continue to see how they can maximize that relationship by ensuring that the 14% tariff doesn't count, doesn't happen anymore. We're also looking at, from the perspective of the Foreign Affairs Ministry as well as the Trade Ministry for Nigeria, that the AGOA Act is extended to at least 2031 or 2037, whichever they want to. But I think the 2037 would be a better time frame for that. And that's because if you look at the numbers, again, these are publicly available numbers, the worth of trade volume between Nigeria and the US on the AGOA trade agreement, the Africa Growth and Opportunity Act agreement, is over $3.8 billion as of December 2024. So that's a significant component of our $13 billion bilateral trade. Why would we want that to end? Especially for our supply chain bolstering, for our domestic SME producers, our farm producers, our farm processors, our agro processors as well. We're going to lose lots of jobs, and a significant end of that AGOA Act with the additional tariff, the 14% tariff that Trump is purporting for Nigeria, as well as the additional brick penalty tariff, combined 24%, means that we're going to get hit of losses of over $300 to $400 million, according to projections that have been made by Nigerian analysts over here, including myself. I think that's the number that we'll be losing yearly. And then again, significant losses on our $3.8 billion deal on the AGOA trade agreement. So the two things, again, like I mentioned, would be to see that we continue to double down on our refined fuel exports to the US markets, because it yields to the political messaging from President Trump, which is to make sure that energy is cheap. And that's why he's big on the drill, baby, drill mantra. Now, in addition to that, also maximize and ensure that there are negotiations for the AGOA Act to be extended. I think there's a chance in that regard, because again, the Africa, like I mentioned on this platform months ago on CGTN, I mentioned that the Africa advisor to President Trump is actually an African. He has a Nigerian citizenship. He's built a big business called the SOA. It's a supply chain and machinery and vehicle import company based in Lagos. He moved there immediately after he finished his graduate school in the United States of America, and has family that are Nigerian citizens. So there's a chance for negotiations, especially if you understand how Trump wants a more deals-based type of negotiations for his foreign policy. So with that, it makes sense for Nigeria to get at least the AGOA Act extended.
Well, we'll see how that plays out once September is here. Basil Abia, policy analyst with Veriv